The job of Facebook and Twitter's independent third-party fact-checkers that they partnered with is to try to prevent certain stories from going viral by claiming that they're false, when in fact they're true, or just by claiming that they're missing context, and then the algorithm dumps them down the memory hole when you post them, and they don't show up in people's feeds. Occasionally, their fake fact checks backfire because they're such a blatant attempt at censorship that it creates more attention for the stories they're trying to cover up in the first place, and so they quietly retract them. Like the one about Hunter Biden's laptop and the emails implicating old Joe and Chinese corruption, which of course is true, but they had to wait until after the election to admit that. PolitiFact, FactCheck.org, all of the trusted fact checkers were wrong when they falsely claimed that the coronavirus couldn't have been man-made and couldn't have come from the Wuhan lab at all. Not only were they fact-checking those claims, but it used to be a violation of Facebook's terms of service to simply say that. USA Today is one of these trusted fact-checkers, and they just issued a bogus one claiming that white people are not being denied monoclonal antibodies in Texas after Harrison Smith, the InfoWars reporter, captured a nurse on video denying him the treatment because he's white. This bogus fact check is half true, which makes it even more deceptive because not all white people are being denied the treatment, only those who are white and also who are under the age 65 or who don't have an underlying condition like diabetes or obesity. But if you're black, you can be under 65 and perfectly healthy with no underlying conditions, and then you'll get it. Let's not forget that PolitiFact falsely claimed that Donald Trump's accurate depictions of the events surrounding Kenosha and Kyle Rittenhouse were false, when in fact they were perfectly accurate. PolitiFact also falsely claimed that Kyle Rittenhouse couldn't legally carry a gun in Wisconsin, which everybody now knows, well, I mean not everybody, half the country at least, anybody who watched the trial knows that he could. Speaking of Kenosha, the riots started because a man named Jacob Blake had assaulted his girlfriend, and then when police came over to investigate, he assaulted them, putting one of them in a headlock when he was armed with a knife, and then when he went to his vehicle, they thought he was going to grab a gun, and so they shot him. As much as they wanted to, Biden's Justice Department didn't press charges against the officer because it was a reasonable and justified shooting. USA Today did their best to try to bury the facts and falsely depict him as an unarmed black man by issuing this fake fact check, falsely claiming Jacob Blake did not brandish a knife and get a gun before the Kenosha police shooting. He was brandishing a knife. It was in his hand when he was fighting with the police. That's clear in the video, and he later admitted this during an interview on Good Morning America. He did not have a gun in the vehicle, so that part of their fact check is true, although it did appear that he was going to grab a gun, and a reasonable person would think that, and that's why they shot him, and that's why it was a justified shooting. Chris Rock did an old comedy skit years ago about how to avoid these kinds of situations, and it's not that hard. You just simply don't assault the police when they're trying to arrest you for another crime you've committed. Facebook's fake fact checks have gotten so out of control that they're not just censoring stories that they claim undermine our democracy or the election integrity or spread medical misinformation. They're literally censoring jokes and memes. Even innocuous memes like this one about gas prices. Man, I haven't seen gas prices this high since the last Democrat was in office. Facebook literally fact-checked that not long ago, saying that it wasn't Joe Biden's fault, even though he's banning fracking and canceled the Keystone Pipeline. And this one, in case you forgot, 2 years ago today, we were experiencing the greatest economy in the history of the world. They literally fact-checked that and claimed that it's false. Last year, when I posted this picture of Congressman John Lewis's funeral showing that they weren't social distancing and were sitting shoulder to shoulder, while most of the rest of the country weren't allowed to have funerals or could only have a dozen people there and then had to live stream it for the rest of their family and friends, Facebook fact-checked that and said, no, they really were social distancing. What are you going to believe, Mark Zuckerberg or your lying eyes? My favorite fact-check is when you post a meme of Martin Luther King wearing a Make America Great Again hat, because thankfully Facebook has investigated that and has deemed it to be false. I don't know if they're still fact-checking this one because it's so embarrassing for them, but I do know from first-hand experience because they personally did it to me, so this is not a joke. Thankfully, Snopes fact-checked that joke that CNN had offered Jussie Smollett a job as a reporter, because that one could be true. When people started joking that Joe Biden made a white supremacist hand sign at a CNN town hall event, the trusted fact-checkers had to step in and declare that he did not, and that was false. It's interesting, they've never fact-checked those claims when any conservative is accused of making that hand sign, only when old Joe did it and when everybody was obviously joking about what he did. At this point, the mainstream media claiming that they're trusted sources of information is like the tobacco CEOs testifying that nicotine's not addictive. And in case you haven't heard, the Washington Post finally retracted a bunch of stories about the Russian dossier, the Steele dossier. Of course, all the fact-checkers missed all those fake stories. But thankfully, Snopes was on top of Fartgate after rumors started swirling that he had a little accident, or at a bare minimum let one rip when he was talking with the Duchess of Cornwall at the climate summit over in Glasgow. They're not saying it's false, but at the moment, they're still saying that it's unproven. They also decided to fact-check the video showing old Joe dozing off during the climate summit. Does video show Biden dozing off at the climate change summit? While a Washington Post reporter said the claim appeared to be true, and footage indeed showed the president with his eyes closed for several seconds, no evidence definitely proved he was struggling to stay awake and not closing his eyes for other reasons. I got a little fact check of my own, by the way, and since it's me, you know that it's real. Geraldo is not Geraldo Rivera's real name. It's actually Gerald, and Geraldo wasn't even like a nickname of his. It's actually a pseudonym that he chose when he started working for WABC in New York because the executives wanted him to appeal to the Latinos in the audience. And so they told him to pick a more Latino-sounding name. And now George Soros is getting into the fact-checking business. He's teaming up with the co-founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, and they're going to be launching a company called Good Information Incorporated, which is dedicated to fighting misinformation and fact-checking it. Seriously, George Soros is now going to be the authority on what's true and what's false on the internet. Jen Psaki finally got her first fact check ever. Up until now, she's never made a single mistake or said anything wrong. Since we're experiencing borderline hyperinflation, they finally decided to fact check her when she said, quote, "No economist out there is projecting that the Build Back Better bill will have a negative impact on inflation. Not a single economist was worried about inflation," she said, with a straight face. And now PolitiFact will fact check you if you dare to speak ill of dear leader and say that old Joe is senile. After Fox News' Brit Hume admitted the obvious on air, it triggered a lot of people, and so PolitiFact fact checked him, saying that geriatric experts say Brit Hume's claim that Joe Biden is senile is wrong. I wouldn't trust Joe Biden to wrap the presents, let alone run the country, which he's obviously destroying, which is why everybody's shouting, "Let's go Brandon." And when you order your Let's Go Brandon shirt or any of my awesome designs from my online store, markdice.com today, you can save 20% off by using the promo code DICE-RULES at the checkout. Today's the last day for Cyber Monday, so get your Let's Go Brandon shirt or my new F Joe Biden shirt. Want to buy a vowel or an Arrest Dr. Fauci shirt or any of my awesome designs? So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below. Enter the promo code DICE-RULES at the checkout to save 20% and check them out.